welcome to today's Daily Decree Live. I'm Brenda Kuhneman, and I am so glad you chose to join me this morning, today, whenever you're watching this. Of course, right here in Omaha, Nebraska, it's 7 a.m. Central Time, and I am here every Monday to Friday to share a word of encouragement with you. And of course, if you're new to the broadcast, all of the content on my show are from my Daily Decree book series, and I've got tons of them now. I've got the original Daily Decree. We have Daily Decrees for family blessings. If you want to pray over your family, it's for you. And then, of course, decrees that kids can pray, or you can pray with your kids, called Daily Decrees for Kids, and I have more to come. But today, since we're in an election year, this is an important time for our country. Daily Decrees for governments, and this government and nations, and this is for, just praying over what's going on in our nation. And let me just say this, for those of you that maybe you're in another nation, well, much of this is built around the United States. So many of these prayers apply to our friends in Canada. There's a decree in here for Israel, which was surprisingly quite prophetic. I wrote it before the war broke out in Israel. And so I would encourage you, if you're in another country, use these decrees. You can replace the United States with that which applies to your nation, and we can be praying over the nations of the world. But I'm very excited. Today on the broadcast, I have with me Terry Blackburn. Welcome to the show today. Now, if you don't know Terry, some of you know her from the Prophetic Pulse. She's kind of been our political liaison on staff.
Yes.
And she's related to some other Armstrongs, and her maiden name is Armstrong. She's married now, but of course, Anthony, that game changer that we know about, they happen to be brother and sister.
Yes.
But Terry, welcome to the show. Now, you come with an incredible resume, and you bring so much to the table. I felt like, since we're talking on government, you have background in political science.
Yep.
That was your degree in school.
That was my degree, yeah.
And you work for our mayor right here in Omaha, Nebraska. And you really keep your ear to the ground on what's going on in politics. And so I'm very excited just about you being on today. We're going to be talking about legislations, these evil things being legislated. And I did a whole prayer on that in the book. But give me just kind of a high-level overview of where you think we are just as a country right now, prophetically, but just in the natural from your experience.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited to be on. I'm excited about this new Daily Decree book, too, because it's so important. This is such, as you said, an important year. There's so much going on in our government and governments around the world. As you said, we're not the only ones that are having elections. Other countries are also having their elections around this time. And so it's so important for us as believers to really be decreeing and declaring on what's going on in our nations, because this year and really what's going on, we have it's a tipping point. That's really what I want to say. I feel like we're at a tipping point where when people start to pray and they start to actually get involved and speak out and be bold, we're going to really start to see major changes and major shifts in legislation, in the ways that our government is formed, and things that are going on in our nations. And so it's so important.
That is so very good. And I want to get right into kind of our absolute, really sink our teeth into today's topic. And if you're following along in the book, we're page 107 from the Daily Decrees for Government book. And if you just happen to be joining us and you don't have the book series, go to our website, hankandbrenda.org, request your copy, and then get one for a friend. I would encourage you, churches, church groups, use these things this year especially to pray in your church groups. But we're going to be at page 107, and we're going to talk about praying against or standing against, Terry, these wicked legislations and these things being disrupted. We can do something, right? We're not going to just let them sign things into law. And but talk a little bit about, first of all, I'd like you to just, highlight for some people, I think some people know this, how laws are supposed to get passed.
Right.
Okay. And then what are some of the things that we're facing right now and what can we do about those things?
Yeah, and that is key. We're supposed to have these government classes, and we all know with the education system that's not always taking place. And really, those laws are it's supposed to be where the people are bringing whatever issues and things that they're seeing in their everyday lives. They're supposed to be bringing that to the lawmakers, to their elected officials, so then the elected officials can then take that information and then craft legislation to help improve the lives of those citizens. That's really how that bill process should be working. But unfortunately, we've got some of these extremists, some of these special interest groups that are really kind of stepping into that process and trying to take the voice away from the people.
It has nothing to do with the people.
Exactly, because they're only interested in whatever their little small interest is to try to really, a lot of times it ends up being money.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And of course, as we know with some of these groups, it represents this tiny single percent.
Exactly.
Or it's not the majority. They want us to think that. So, we've seen this obviously with the gay marriage issue, the transgender issue.
Right.
I mean, really, are the majority of Americans for children being able to mutilate their bodies? No, we know that's just not true. But so that segues a little bit into what are some of the things that you've been hearing and seeing, and then we'll get into what can we do as Christians. So
right, and I think one of the big things that I've been seeing, especially this election cycle, and really building for the last couple of years, is we've been seeing that those gender mutilation surgeries for minors, as you said. Most of Americans, not even just believers, just Americans, people in general, are not for this.
No.
They understand that it is not okay to mutilate a child's body before they've even come into puberty, before they even really understand what's happening, and really without consent of parents. Come on.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Not only is it crazy, it's outrageous.
Exactly.
It's unthinkable.
Exactly. And so I feel like that is a huge issue that we're seeing. Another one I think would be the materials that's in libraries.
Yes.
I think a lot of parents are starting to wake up and notice, hey, what are some of these books that my kids are bringing home?
Right.
What are they?
That's school libraries, but that's public libraries as well.
Exactly.
So we're seeing that. I mean, when was it okay for drag queens to be reading to children? I couldn't imagine as a parent sitting there and allowing that display to go on in front of my 8-year-old.
And then they have the nerve to call it family friendly.
Right.
Really?
I know. You can't even believe you can't make this stuff up. It's crazy that people go along. Terry, I'm going to read our scripture, and then I want you to talk about some, if you can think of any immediately off your head. I'm putting you on the spot on any current bills, because what I hear a lot is people will say, well, had I known this was being done, I would have been involved. But they weren't aware of bill number blump, blump, blump that was before the legislature. They didn't know because they probably hide it. And so I want to be able to uncover and empower people a little bit. But let me read our scripture. This is so important. And I want you to remember this. This is why we have to stand. It's Proverbs 16:12. And it says, it is an abomination to kings, and that's any political leader, to commit wickedness, for the throne is established by righteousness. So to me, I read that verse and it says to me, I need to be bringing righteousness to the table in my country, in the legislative process. We are the ones, because there's people out there, that's all they'll legislate is evil.
It's true.
That's all they'll legislate if I don't bring something to the table. So what are some key things, some key bills that are out there right now that you might be aware of? Maybe it's in another state. It could just be Nebraska or whatever you're hearing that's important. And then also, what can people do to be involved? Let's talk about that.
I think the biggest, if I could, number one bill that I could really mention here is the abortion bills that are going to be happening, because we had that amazing thing happen in 22 where we overturned Roe v. Wade, which is absolutely amazing. But what that decision did is it brought it back from the Supreme Court decision. It brought it back to a decision of the states. So now individual state legislatures now have to pass legislation protecting the rights of the unborn children. And so we're seeing a lot of states now bringing back legislation to try to either protect the unborn, but then you've got the other side as well.
Of course.
That's trying to bring these abortion bills and trying to even make it even wider. and make it to where we're now killing babies after they're born.
Yeah, and which we never would have thought it would have gotten to that place. See, evil, if you give it an inch, it takes 10 miles.
Right.
It just, so, and would you say you're seeing even more, a lot of positive things being passed that are protecting life? We're seeing that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, with the gender mutilation surgeries, the number of states, I believe we're over half at this point now, that have passed some sort of bill that protects minors from these harmful surgeries and the procedures, even the hormone blockers that block that or that protect female sports.
Yes.
We're seeing that pass across the nation. And so that is exciting and really something to get excited about.
Well, and thank you for sharing that, because I think sometimes we forget that there's so many areas where we're winning.
Right.
And we're winning in a lot of these areas. There people are standing up. But talk a little bit about, and man, we could get into so many topics on this, but talk about, how can people in their states be involved? Obviously, we can write our congressman. Sometimes does that do good? I don't know. I think it does. It could if there's enough pressure applied. But how can people get involved in the legislative process in their state or community?
That is a great question. And I try to encourage people all the time. It is so important. Writing letters, your elected officials, they pay attention to that. When I've worked at the local level, at the city level, and I've worked in the mayor's office. I've worked in a congressman's office as well. I've also helped out with some different state level races. And so I've seen legislators at different levels of government, when they get a call and they start to get emails from individual citizens and they can tell that it's someone who took time to actually write it, they pay attention.
Well, and that's good, and that's why we encourage people right from the pulpit here at Lord of Hosts, to get involved like that, start writing. That was a big deal during the lockdowns. It was people writing into the health commissions and saying, no, this is just a game.
Right.
This is theater, it's a game. So you also mentioned to me before we went on air, you talked about how people can speak before their legislature. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So all of whether it's a school board meeting, whether it's a city council meeting, your state legislatures, all of those are public meetings, which means that the public is encouraged and really should be going there to, one, keep an eye on what is being said at those meetings, what they're voting on, what's being talked about. You have a right to be there. And they almost always have some sort of set aside time specifically for public comment, where individual citizens can go up and you can say how you're feeling about a specific bill, how you're feeling about a specific vote, and you can really communicate face-to-face with your elected officials. So I encourage people to go to your legislatures, your city council members. They love to hear from the citizens. They really do.
Well, Terry, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this decree, but here's what I'm going to do. You're going to be back with me tomorrow. So these will air together, and we're going to make this declaration. I want to pick this topic back up tomorrow. So Terry's going to be back with me. We're going to continue to talk about laws and legislation and how we can be involved as Christians. And then we're going to hit a little bit on how we can pray, because I think both are so key and so important. But Terry, thank you for joining me today. And we're going to let's really hone in, because listen, and tell somebody, Terry is going to be back, and we're going to be talking about how you can be involved, things that you can do. Yes, we can all pray. We need to pray. But we also need to know how in our local communities, and we're going to continue to uncover ways that we can, go before the legislature. I don't think a lot of people know that, Terry. I don't think they think of it. They see it on television, but I don't know that a lot of people know how they can do that. So we're going to pick this back up tomorrow. So I want you to stay tuned, mark your calendar. But first of all, before we go, partners, thank you. Thank you for helping me bring in people like Terry and others that we can talk about truth on the Daily Decree. And remember, if you don't have a copy of Daily Decrees for Government and Nations, you need to get it. And of course, you can catch all of the Daily Decree programs right on OVTV. Watch it at onevoicetv.net or download the app. And it's because of your support that Pastor Hank and myself are able to bring the prophetic word of hope to people all over the world. And remember, last but not least, if you have a personal prayer request, I want to make sure that you go to our website at hankandbrenda.org, submit that, and we've got intercessors that will pray for you. They love to pray. Amen. Stay tuned for part 2 tomorrow. We're going to make this declaration that laws and legislation that's evil will be overturned. Till then, bye-bye.